Loki. Loki, what are you doing? I love you too, but I have a video to do. Parker, and welcome back to Maltly Morphs. So today I have Loki here with me, and he was my first reptile. He is a ball python. He is pastel and Cheehat pied. And what does that have to do with anything? Well, today's video I'm going to talk about breeding. And specifically things that I wish I had known when I decided I was going to start trying to do breeding. And this isn't just about ball pythons. This is kind of just a general, when I decided I was going to start breeding reptiles, things that I kind of just wish that I had known that nobody really seems to touch on. Or they may touch on them, and I'm just going into more detail. Either way, this video is all about breeding and the things that I wish I had known. Honestly, when you decide that, you're going to start breeding, you have to do a lot of research. You have to go into genetics, you have to go into the different lines of things, temperatures, humidity, care for the eggs, supplies for the eggs, all this other stuff. Things that I had wished that I had known getting into this, you see all these larger scale breeders and you're like, oh, I want to do that, I want that many animals, I want to do big time breeding. And one of the things that I wish that I had known at the time is that it is absolutely okay to be a small scale breeder, and that's what I do. I do small scale breeding. What that means is that I have a select few animals that I take and I work with as far as breeding. And why do I do that? The reason why I do that is because I feel like these larger scale breeders, and I'm not saying that they don't love their animals, I don't. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that they don't all work very closely with them, but I feel that being a smaller scale breeder it gives me the opportunity to spend individual time and individual care and getting to know these animals very, very well. Which kind of goes into the next topic of the thing that nobody really seems to talk about as far as going into, these breeding videos and stuff, is nobody really goes into, they do all this talk about genetics and timelines, and, if you're like me, I do a lot of really intense record keeping, which is great, because that kind of gives you a forecast for the next year. But the thing that nobody really seems to talk about is taking into account your animal's personalities. And why is that important? Well, it might not be so important with, more docile species like Loki, the ball pythons. I feel like maybe with a more docile species that it doesn't really, apply. But of course, if you have, a more aggressive female and you put it with an aggressive male, things might not turn out the greatest. And I kind of learned that the hard way. Well, how did I learn that out the hard way? Well, I have Tori, which is my bold girl, and she is what I would consider a hot female. And these are leopard geckos that I'm talking about now. And what is a hot female? A hot female is what we suspect she is, and what that is the theory is that when you get a female who is incubated at a male temperature, at a higher temperature, that can affect their behavior later on in adulthood and can make them more aggressive. Now, I'm not actually sure if there's any science behind this. However, as a hot female, we have noticed that when it comes to breeding, she is more, aggressive. She doesn't take shit from the boys. Why does this fit in with this? Well, that's because I have two giant males, a normal and a Diablo Blanco. And I have Frisk, which is a normal sized male, and he is an albino, with head. Well, he's a rainwater albino, Murphy patternless head eclipse. So, the giants they're a little more of aggressive males. And Frisk is definitely a more docile male. He's very docile, very sweet. If you follow me on social media at all, you know that Banana, the giant Diablo Blanco, he actually took a chunk out of my finger a couple of months back, which was totally my fault. He was, I was feeding him, and I had happened to stick my hand in the bin, and he turned around and he got a hold of me, and it was pretty nasty. But yeah, that was totally my fault. That wasn't, him just randomly attacking. I stuck my hand in while there were crickets running around, and he nabbed my finger. So, it is what it is. However, now when we go into talking about personalities and, why that would affect breeding, all of my leopard geckos, I'm lucky enough to have a select few on my breeding team, and they all have very individual personalities. How do I know this? Well, because I have the opportunity to take and spend extended time with each of them and work very closely with them. Moppet, which is my rainwater albino female, she is not an aggressive male, but if you do something she doesn't like, she will definitely tell you. I misted down her enclosure the one time while she was in shedding because she was having a rough time, and she screamed at me. Tori does not like the bigger males. She will literally fight them. She is a female. We've double-checked and everything, but she just does not like the bigger males. They chase after her, and she has turned around and snapped at them, etc. They've grabbed a hold of her in not exactly the nicest ways, and you just cannot put Tori with the other two bigger males. However, if I put Tori with Frisk, who is the most docile male that we have, he is an absolute sweetheart, and I adore Frisk. She's fine. Absolutely fine. Frisk does well with all three of our girls. We have Tori, Moppet, and Snubs. Snubs is our Max Snow, who we have eggs in the incubator right now. Yay! Day 41, I am trying to be patient. It is so hard. I am not patient at all, and literally every hour on the hour, I've got my nose pressed against the incubator window, just, please hatch, please. Oh, I'm so excited for these babies. Anyway, back to the subject. But yeah, I can put, Snubs, which is our most docile female, with any of the giants or any of the males, and she's absolutely fine. She's a sweetheart. Now, Moppet, I can put her with Frisk, and I've put her with Banana, and she's fine. However, I put her with Stumpy, which is our normal giant male, and she absolutely hates him. And it all comes down to their personalities and that they just do not mesh well. And with smaller scale breeding and getting the chance to work individually with these animals and knowing their personalities, it gives me the opportunity to avoid serious injuries, because I've had a couple of people who have bred geckos and stuff that I know, because, I have several people that I consult. If I don't know why this thing is happening or what have you, I reach out and I'm like, hey, I'm having this issue, you're more experienced than me, can you help me? And I just, I don't even know where I was going with that. My brain just shut off. Anyway, oh yeah, I've had them, and they were like, oh, well, you have to be careful with the giants, because if they fight, we've had them tear apart a female. So definitely, things that, no one seems to talk about is, the personality of your animals, because if they don't click and they don't mesh well, you're gonna end up with some seriously injured animals, and exotic vets are not cheap. Some other things that I wish I'd known when, I got into breeding is not necessarily the cost, but things that I could do to cut costs, kind of. So, like, one of the things is that I took and, I don't like bins. So I have tanks, except for my geckos, because I have so many geckos. Um, so I have tanks for all the ball pythons, and then I have a bin system rack thing for my geckos. And for the geckos, I have, converted all of their heating to something that's a little more efficient. All of the snakes have individual heat mats. And then I keep a pretty ambient temperature in my house of about 70-ish, because it's comfortable for me, and it seems to work pretty well to help me control everybody else's temperatures. It's a good happy medium. So I've done that, and I've also started buying in bulk. Why do I mean by buying in bulk? I mean going online and going to like these feeder websites and looking at your pricing and stuff, buying bulk frozen thawed or bulk insects. Like I have crickets and waxworms and what have you. I like to give a variety because I have a variety of animals. I have a fire skink. I have my my blind crested gecko. I have arachnids. I have my leopard geckos. I have my snakes. So I have a variety of animals that I have to feed a variety of diet. So by buying in bulk, that helps me cut down the cost, because a lot of the places when you buy in bulk, you get like a bit of a discount, so to say. And a lot of them, if you take and you have an order over X amount, they will do like free shipping and stuff. So if you go and every week, every 2 weeks, you're buying, 5 rats, and in my area, rats can go anywhere from $4.99 for a small rat to, if you're getting a jumbo rat, $10.99. So that's like $55 every 2 weeks. Well, if I go to, for example, let's just, make a cute little name, Reptiles R Us, or, Feeders R Us, and you go on their website and you buy, a count of 50 rats for like $150. You can stick them in your freezer, and you're going to have your reptiles fed for a bit, and you're cutting your cost a little bit. Which is essentially what I've done. I've started buying in bulk. What I think I'm going to start doing, though, for my feeders is I'm going to start going to the expo and buying bulk frozen thawed from them. So yeah. As far as insects, if you know how to keep them, you can make those stretch for a while too. I like the waxworms. They last quite a bit, and you can get them in a count for like 1,000. I had done that before. I think I had gotten like a count of 1,000 super worms, and that had lasted me like almost 2 months, I think. And that was, it was great, because I didn't have to worry about it, and I spent like maybe $20. So yeah. Another thing that a lot of these videos don't really talk about is education in the breeding industry. And why is that important? Well, I see it a lot, especially I want to say at expos and pet stores. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of people that go to these things, or they go to the pet stores and there's misinformation, or they go to expos and they just buy something. That's essentially what I did with this guy. I went to an expo and I just bought him on a whim. Luckily, I had spent a lot of time as a child studying, researching and studying reptiles. I was lucky enough to grow up across the street from a zoo, so it's always there. So I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing, and then as soon as I took and brought him home, I did tons and tons of research specifically on ball pythons. I was lucky enough to have my father-in-law there who gave me, okay, this is the basics that he needs. There's a lot of people who don't do that or don't have that, mindset. They're just like, oh, I'm going to bring this guy home and stick him in a shoebox or something. And that's really, really sad because these are amazing, amazing animals. And, yeah, I absolutely love these guys. I love all reptiles. I always have. Uh, but as, you know, somebody who's into breeding now, breeding is my full-time job. Well, education and breeding is my full-time job now. I quit a job in the hospitality industry, working in hotels, to work with reptiles full-time, and I absolutely love it. It gives me the opportunity to stay home with my children. The animals have definitely improved their lives. However, a big part of my job is educating people. So when people come to me and they're like, hey, I bought this animal, or if somebody were to come to me at an expo at my table and be like, hey, I want to buy this leopard gecko, hey, I want to buy that, you know, baby ball python. Part of my job as a breeder is to educate them and make sure that this animal is going to be, you know, properly taken care of. And that's my responsibility as a breeder and putting these animals out into, you know, the world. You know, I have to make sure that they're going to a good home and that their new owners are aware of their proper care and what have you. Yeah, if you decide that you, this is what you want to do, you want to start getting into breeding, a big part of your job is going to be educating people about the kind of animal that they're going to be keeping. And it's a shame that it isn't really, you know, discussed in a lot of the videos. I've seen a couple that have touched on it, but, you know, not educating people is how these guys end up getting hurt, how other people, you know, get hurt, you know, because they end up getting bit or what have you, and it's just educate people. That's a large part of what I do, and I feel as breeders that it's our responsibility to do that. But yeah, that's pretty much the key things that I wish I had known, that nobody really seems to talk about when, you know, you get into breeding, because I have done a lot of research. I have watched a lot of breeding videos, and this is kind of what I don't see a lot of in those videos. It's just, and it's a shame too, because, like, these are a lot of things that come into factors, and would I change my mind knowing what I know now? Absolutely not. I love what I do. I love these guys, and I love baby reptiles. I would not change quitting to do breeding and work with these animals full time. I wouldn't change it for the world. However, I do wish that I would have, you know, known how to cut costs early on, that I would have known, you know, to educate more people, to take individual personality of my animals into account, which kind of seems like common sense, but you don't really think about it. You're like, okay, well, you know, she's not aggressive with me, and then you put her in a male, and then exactly. So, but yeah, that's my video. It's kind of a longer one, I'm sorry. But yeah, so, if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you like me putting out these videos and you want to see more of it, subscribe, hit the bell so that way you're notified whenever I do post something new. We have a Patreon, so I'll link that below and you can become a patron. I'm doing a special right now that if you do one of the larger tiers, you get a special video from us. We also have a line of merch out right now, and it features artwork by me. We have mugs, t-shirts, all that cool stuff, and you should definitely check it out. We have an Etsy shop, a Printful, all that good stuff, and I can link those below as well. And we will see you on the next video. Say bye, Loki. Say bye-bye. Ba-da-da-da. Do ba-da-da-da. No? Oh, there we go.